I don't know how I feel about the ending of this book. I just kind of felt like sick to my stomach while I was watching it. Hello, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby, and welcome to another Summerween vlog. If you missed days 1 and 2, I recently posted that earlier this week, so I will have that first vlog linked down below, but it is now day 3 of Summerween, and right now it's a Sunday morning, it's about to be noon, and today I do have a full day of working in the bookstore, so there's not going to be too much reading happening for me today because I'm working a 9-hour shift, and you know, especially with my commute down to this bookstore, it's about like a 35-minute drive, so while I've been on the way down here, I've actually been listening to Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep by Tremblay. I started this book right before Summerween because I wanted to get a head start on it so that by the time we got to today, I could finish up the rest of this. And right now, I'm already up to page 272 and I only have this tiny chunk left. I think I have like 30 minutes left on the audiobook right now. And I've been really enjoying this one so far, which is very exciting for me because I feel like with Tremblay, he's been very hit or miss for me in the past. I think by far my favorite book that I've ever read from Tremblay is The Cabin at the End of the World. I've always considered that to be like one of my favorite horror books ever, but I do think with a lot of his recent releases, I just really haven't been enjoying too many of them, and so I am really glad to be enjoying this one so far, especially because this one leans a little bit more into the like sci-fi horror, and this one has really felt like it's blending a few different genres, which I really like about this. And so in this story, we're following this character named Julia, and she's in her 20s, and she considers herself like a semi-professional gamer, and she's currently living with her retired uncle, and she's not really enjoying the jobs that she has. And then one day her estranged mother ends up calling her, asking if she wants to do this really weird job opportunity. And it's kind of hard to explain, but like basically there's this guy who is in like a vegetative state and they put an AI in his brain. And basically Julia's job would be to walk him from one side of the country to the other as a chaperone. And she'd be like controlling him with this like little remote. I don't know, the premise for this book sounds so strange, but it's actually been really interesting so far. And I think it's mostly because I really like Julia as a character. Right from the beginning of this book, I immediately just felt so connected to her. I love the love that she has for the Big Lebowski. I just think it's so funny. And like, there's just something so sincere about her character and the way that she's being written. Like, she just feels very real to me and her struggles feel very real too. I also just think the writing in this book feels so experimental and so unique because obviously like we get Julia's perspective and I think that her parts are being narrated in like a third person voice, but then we do get these chapters in between that are titled You, and it's almost told in this like second person where it's like from the consciousness of the AI or like the guy that's in the vegetative state. I don't know, it's a really unique perspective to get in this book, and I feel like Tremblay has been doing some really experimental stuff with this perspective. Like, look at this page, like what even is going on? Like, there's a lot of pages that look like that where it's like the same word repeated a million times, or you get some weird stuff like this going on, or you get stuff like this happening too. Like, this was really interesting. And you know what I'm loving about this is that the audiobook is so cool because anytime there's like weird stuff like that happening on the page, it's really cool because the audiobook will do this kind of like echoing narration where it'll be like layering voices on top of one another. Like, the audiobook experience for this has been absolutely wild. Like, there have been really good sound effects and it's just a very immersive experience. So I would highly recommend the audiobook if you're interested in reading this one. I do feel like this book is having a lot of commentary about AI and like how scary it can be, this potential future where we're headed with like AI and like how quickly it's advancing. But then there's also this like horrifying thing, you know, where like these people are saying, oh, well, don't worry, he's in a vegetative state, he's basically in a coma, like he doesn't know what's going on, he can't feel anything. But then it's like horrifying to read because as you're reading from the you perspective, that's basically like the perspective of this man, it doesn't seem like that's true. Like, it definitely seems like he's conscious and he's aware of what's going on. And I think that's the most horrifying thing about this book. It's that feeling of like not being in control of your own body, which is definitely something that really gets to me when I read horror. I mean, like, one of my favorite books, We Spread by Ian Reid, like that's one of my favorite books of all time for a reason. And it kind of has that similar theme of like you're not in control of your own body or your own mind. I just pulled up at the bookstore now and today is expected to be a pretty busy day. I mean, it is a Sunday right now, so typically Sundays are pretty busy days anyway in the bookstore, but especially today because we have our anniversary sale happening at the bookstore this weekend. And so it basically means that everything in the store is going to be 20% off. And obviously, like, because I'm new to the bookstore, I have not yet worked an anniversary sale, so like I don't really know how busy we're expecting to get today. People love a sale, you know, so I'm expecting that we're going to be a little bit more busy than usual. But hopefully when I get my lunch break today, I can finish this one, and if not, I'll definitely finish it on the drive home later tonight. Hi, hello. It is now the afternoon of day 4 of Summerween. It's Monday afternoon. I just got off of work. It's like 5:30, and yesterday ended up being such a busy day. Oh my gosh, it was a really chaotic day because I ended up working on the register for 3 hours yesterday, and because of the anniversary sale, like I was mentioning, it was just so busy. Like I had a line for most of the day, and I feel like that was the most amount of socializing that I've ever done in the bookstore, so I was absolutely exhausted by the end of the night. I always like to check my Apple Watch too to see how many steps I walk during the day because I'm always going up and down stairs when I'm working at the bookstore. And yesterday I actually only did 6,000 steps compared to last week when I did 8,800 steps in one day just from working an 8-hour shift. And yesterday's shift was a little bit longer. I think I was there for a little bit over 9 hours, but thankfully today was a little bit less crazy at work. I had to start a little bit earlier this morning, so that's why I didn't get a chance to update you because I was already running late. I woke up kind of late, but now I am off for the night and it's about 5:30 at night. I'm actually going to be going and picking up some tacos at the taco truck and then taking them to my sister's apartment because later tonight, me and my sister and her husband Obed, we're all going to watch the new horror movie called Obsession. So I can't wait to finally watch that because now it's available to stream. And so I've been dying to see this movie because everybody just says that it's one of the best horror movies of the year. So I can't wait to see it. But I did want to let you know that yesterday while I was on my lunch break, I did end up finishing Dead But Dreaming of Electric Sheep. And I've got to tell you, I don't know how I feel about the ending of this book. This was definitely one of those reads where the moment it ended, I was just and then I ended up searching through a lot of Goodreads reviews to try and vocalize my feelings about it because I was having difficulty with the ending of this. I feel like some of it might have gone over my head, but I did have this feeling of kind of being underwhelmed by the ending. I don't know, I definitely agree though with a lot of the Goodreads reviews that say that this book should have been a novella. I just think it's a really, really fascinating concept, but I do think it starts to drag around the middle. And as far as the general plot of the book goes, I do think it starts to get a little bit repetitive after a while. I do think this would have worked so much better as a short story, but this book was very experimental to me in the same way that House of Leaves feels kind of experimental. Paul Tremblay is such a talented writer, and I feel so many of his books are very unique from each other, which I think is a very great thing, but he also just has this style to his writing. I don't know how to explain it. It's almost this pretentious kind of vibe. I've been getting that vibe especially from his most recent books Horror Movie and The Paul Bearers Club. It definitely has a similar feel to those books in the writing style, and those books, sadly, they're not my favorite books from this author. I actually think this one is pretty comparable to The Paul Bearers Club in terms of style. It reminded me quite a bit of that. I mean, I kind of did some of the interludes in this book I thought were really interesting, especially this one where it was almost it was an interlude from the author himself or something. I don't really understand what this was, but he was talking about how writing a novel is difficult and kind of talking about the experience of writing a novel. And then at the end it says, "And what is the purpose of this interlude, you ask? Without spelling it out, underlining and going all caps on your ass, a few questions for you to ponder. Have you, to this point in the novel, wondered who the narrator is, who is telling and relaying the story, and why?" And there's definitely some thought-provoking bits like that make you stop and think, and you're wait, is this the author talking directly to the reader? It was just very interesting, but also very pretentious at the same time. So I don't know if this was the perfect book for me. I'm probably gonna settle on somewhere between 3 to 3.5 stars feels right for me, which is kind of a bummer because, in the first 100 pages, I was really, really vibing with this, and I thought maybe I was gonna end up giving this 4 or 5 stars. I thought it started off so strong, but then I mentioned, it started to get a little bit repetitive and the story was just losing me a little bit. So if this was a novella, it could have been the perfect book. Anyway, I am so exhausted from working these last 2 days, but I'm glad that for my work week, I am done working at the bookstore for the rest of Summerween, which is fantastic because tomorrow, I have reading sprints on my YouTube channel tomorrow, and I need to figure out what I want to read next because I'm not really sure what I'm in the mood for. And then after tomorrow, I have 2 more days of Summerween where I'm not going to be working, so I'm really going to be able to read so much more in these upcoming days. But for now, I'm going to pick up the tacos from the taco truck, go to my sister's apartment, and watch a scary movie! Okay, hi, it is much later in the night. It's like 10:30 at night. I just got home. I took a quick shower and I feel so much more human. Oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted from the day. Isn't it so beautiful in the state of Washington how like in the summertime, the sun doesn't go down until so late? Like I was driving home at 9:30 and it was looking like blue hour. Like it was so beautiful outside. I had amazing quesadilla tacos as you saw with my sister. Like they were so good. And we watched the movie Obsession and like, oh my God, that was such an intense movie. I ended up giving the movie 4 out of 5 stars. Like I really enjoyed it for the most part. I thought the acting was phenomenal, especially from this girl, Indy. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything before, and she was amazing. Like the way that she could almost like flip a switch with her facial acting and like the way that she would react to things. Like, oh my God, I was so unsettled. Found this movie to be like so overstimulating, and I think because of that, I don't know if this is one that I would ever want to watch again. Like it doesn't really have that rewatchability factor for me personally. I kind of felt the same way after I watched Begonia for the first time. It's like I can admire and respect this movie for what it is, but like my viewing experience was like, oh my God, like I was on the edge of my seat the whole time and like my stomach was in knots. And like the last 10 minutes of this movie had me so nauseous and like my heart was racing, but it was a really great film. And I actually love the commentary that this movie is trying to have. I think how difficult it is to be a woman in this world, especially with men who try to have good intentions. I mean, the fact that this character's name is literally Bear, I feel like just that alone is having a lot of social commentary right there. And I feel like this type of horror movie is going to be especially effective to a female audience for reasons. It was very intense and I'm glad that I finally watched it, but like, wow, this was a lot. Like after watching the movie, me and my sister were just like sitting there talking about it for like 20 minutes. And the more that I was talking about the movie, the more that I was like, no, like I really enjoyed this. I just kind of felt like sick to my stomach while I was watching it. I also think this movie was kind of overstimulating to me because there's so many scenes in this movie where the characters are just like yelling at the top of their lungs. I don't know why it literally like makes my stomach upset. It makes me feel like on the edge of my seat when I'm watching people behave in a really aggressive manner for a long time. But this ended up being such a great movie and I'm so impressed by the screenplay and like the directing style was so gorgeous. Like I feel like this movie was shot so beautifully. It had a lot of like darkly funny moments too, especially in like the first half. Like I was actually laughing out loud in so many scenes, but then there were so many scenes that were so bleak and depressing and like shocking moments where my jaw was like on the floor and I was like, oh wow, like we're really going there. So this was definitely an unforgettable watching experience and I'm glad that I watched it. I definitely understand the hype with this movie. I feel like horror movies have been doing so well in the year of 2026. Like this is actually the first one that I'm watching. I need to catch up on all of the horror movies because I know Backrooms is really popular right now. And then Hokum is another one that I'm hoping to watch. Like maybe I will watch that one this week. I don't know. Luckily, as I mentioned, tomorrow I do have the day off from the bookstore and I do have reading sprints in the morning. I was trying to figure out like what I'm in the mood for to read next. And then I'm so excited because my library hold for the audiobook of 9 Lives by Catherine Steadman actually just came in tonight because I was kind of in the mood for a thriller tomorrow. I was actually debating if I wanted to read this one tomorrow, but because I tend to have better luck with Catherine Steadman, I feel like this one would be the better option for me, at least right now. So I think for tomorrow, for day 5 of Summerween, I think I'm going to start with this one and I will update you with my thoughts once I do. Good afternoon. It is now 2 o'clock. It is day 5 of Summerween. And so far the day has been going very well. My dad ended up making these like breakfast bagel sandwiches this morning that were so good. That's like his latest thing, you know, because recently it was breakfast burritos. Like he had this obsession with making breakfast burritos every day. And now I think it's changing to the breakfast bagel sandwiches. And like, how lucky am I that he really loves making these in the morning? And so that was so good. I ended up making some coffee here at the house. And then a few hours ago, I started doing some reading sprints here on my YouTube channel. And I have been reading 9 Lives by Catherine Steadman. And oh my gosh, before I talk about the book, can I just say that the movie Obsession really messed with me last night? Like I've been thinking about this movie nonstop and I was texting my sister this morning because she was like, oh my God, this movie had me tweaking last night. And I was like, no, actually for real, me too. There's something about this movie that's really been like sticking with me. And the more that I think about it, the more that I'm like freaked out by the idea of this film. And like there are just some scenes that I was like thinking about right before I went to bed last night that were like really messing with me, which is crazy because after watching watching the movie, I remember saying to my sister, I was like, you know, I don't think this is going to be the kind of movie that like makes me lose sleep. I didn't think it was like that kind of horror film, but clearly I was wrong because I was so anxious last night before bed. And like there were just some elements of this film that I was thinking about right before I was sleeping that I was like, oh hell no. And so I feel like the more time that I have to sit with this movie, the more that I'm appreciating it. So yeah, anyways, I just had to let you know about that. But so far, 9 Lives has been going so well, and I'm so glad that I decided to pick up this book today. Right now, I'm about 126 pages in. I just really love the way that Catherine Steadman writes her thriller novels because for some reason, they all kind of have this like spooky vibe to them. I felt that way about her other book called The Family Game, and then she also had a recent book called Look in the Mirror, and I feel like both of those books also had this like really creepy kind of like atmospheric writing to it. And this synopsis is kind of like a basic thriller synopsis, at least in my opinion, because you have this woman named Frankie like living alone with her cat. And it's kind of like that typical storyline where she's kind of like spying on her neighbors and she thinks that something might be going on. It's very much like The Woman in the Window in that way, but there is something about the writing in this that I am absolutely loving, and I'm so invested in the story already. I really loved like one of the first quotes in this book on page 8. It says, "Who you are," they say, "is the amalgamation of the 6 people you spend the most time with. Does it count if the people you spend the most time with don't know you're spending time with them? Does it count if you don't even know their names?" And what I mean when I say that this book has like some really creepy vibes so far is because the first chapter ends on this scene where like she's going to bed with her cat, and it says, "At 4 a.m. I wake in the darkness, every sense alive to the fact that someone is in the room with me." Like that's how the chapter ends. Like, bitch, what the fuck? One of the things that freaks me out the most in horror or in like any stories ever is the idea of something watching you while you're sleeping or feeling like you're not alone when you're asleep. I hate that so much. It's like one of the things that freaks me out. And it even says this in the description of the book. Her cat's name is Blue, by the way, and it says, "When Blue returns one night from slipping into places he shouldn't, Frankie's concerns solidify. 2 words are roughly scratched into his collar: help me." And so she's freaking out because she's like, how is the cat even like getting out of the house? And like, who is writing "help me" on her cat's collar? Like there's just like some weird things going on. And so this character, she literally decides to pull out this like old cat cam that she has, which is basically a camera that she's using to like spy on her neighbors. And that's what I mean about how she's kind of like an unreliable narrator, because I'm like, what do you mean she's just pulling out a camera and like low key spying on her neighbors? And so this story is about how she's starting to like uncover some secrets that are going on with her neighbors, and she's starting to get like more invested in their lives. And so I am really invested in the mystery aspects of this book, but I also just really like following from this character. Like I feel like the writing is just so good. I like how when she's meeting someone for the first time, she said, "It's important not to become too weird once you're living alone. It's been a long time since I've had to make a first impression. It's important to remember not to become yourself too quickly." And I really felt so seen by that, because I do think making a first impression with somebody is so difficult, because you're like, how weird do I act right from the jump? And on top of Frankie's perspective, we are also getting this other perspective that's just titled The Woman, and it says like 11 months ago. And we're getting these flashback chapters from this mysterious woman. And so there are multiple timelines happening in this book. And I will say that so far I feel a little bit more invested in Frankie's timeline than this other woman, but it's also because I feel like the woman's chapters are kind of vague and like I don't really know what's going on in those chapters. But I am curious to see how these two timelines are going to intersect. And it's going very well so far. Like I could see myself giving this 4 stars, maybe even 5 stars, depending on how shocked I feel by the second half of this book. So it feels really good to be reading a thriller that I'm really enjoying. I'm about like 42% of the way through the audio, so I feel like I should be able to finish this one. I also might take a walk a little bit later this afternoon because it's such a nice day out. Okay, hi, it is many hours later. It's actually almost 7 o'clock at night, but I wanted to update you because I did take a walk and it was really nice out today. And then I also ended up making this really good HelloFresh dinner tonight for me and my mom. It's one of my favorite HelloFresh meals. It's actually the pecan crusted chicken and it has this like honey mustard sauce that goes on it. I also make mashed potatoes to go with it because I am just such a big lover of mashed potatoes, but it was really good. And to anybody wondering, my mom is still pretty sick with pneumonia. I don't know, she's finished her second round of antibiotics and she's still not better, but she has been in touch with her doctor about what are going to be the next steps. And also, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who let me know about those like SPO2 oximeter finger reader things for oxygen, because we have ordered one and it's on the way here. And I feel like that's going to be really helpful for both me and my mom for like peace of mind to know what levels her oxygen is at, especially when she has these like coughing fits. It can be really scary. But anyway, I wanted to update you because I have finished reading 9 Lives by Catherine Steadman, and I am kind of bummed that I didn't love the second half of this book. You know, my experience with this book was so strange because I was really loving the beginning, actually. I thought the first like 100 to even 200 pages were so interesting because I loved the style of the writing, and I also kind of loved how it was feeling a little bit spooky and like atmospheric in that way. And you know what's so funny is that I'm seeing a lot of people on Goodreads who are rating this book kind of mid. A lot of people are saying the beginning was really slow, and then the ending is like when all of the thrills and like all of the crazy things happen towards the end. And apparently that's when it got interesting for most of the people that are reviewing this book on Goodreads, but I actually had like the opposite experience because I felt really invested in this story from the beginning. I thought our main character was so interesting, and I kind of liked the fact that she was a bit of an unreliable narrator and that she was just kind of like spying on her neighbors with this cat camera. But I almost feel like the more that the mystery builds, you get introduced to like such a huge cast of characters because you're meeting so many characters in this neighborhood. And it felt like one of those stories to me that like the more that the thrills were like building, it was like the less that I cared about the story, which is weird, and I don't know how to explain why I feel that way, but I just started to lose interest. And then also, unfortunately, I ended up feeling quite underwhelmed by some of the plot twists at the end. There wasn't anything super surprising to me in this book, like everything I was like, okay, yeah. And then also the epilogue, I was like, oh, like what was the point of the epilogue? Like, I don't really understand. I just think in comparison to some of the other books that I've read from Catherine Steadman pretty recently, I don't think this one ranks nearly as high for me as those other ones. So this one's probably gonna end up around like 3 stars from me as well, which is such a bummer because this one had so much potential. And I don't know, I feel like this is part of the reason why I'm reading thrillers less and less these days, because I always end up feeling this way, where like it starts off really strong and I'm invested, but then slowly I just start to lose interest for some reason. And these days especially, it feels really rare for a thriller to really surprise me. Anyway, I'm sorry that this Summerween vlog is like one of the shortest probably that I've ever done. It's just been a really busy couple of days because I was working so much in the bookstore. But in my next Summerween vlog, which will include the last 2 days of the readathon, I have some exciting reading plans because I'm thinking that I'm going to start reading Helpless by Jessica Knoll because I just got the audiobook checked out from my library. And so this one is definitely going to be happening in that last Summerween vlog. And I'm also really excited because I just confirmed with my sister and we're going to be going to the lake tomorrow together. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Like, I hope that I can do some swimming in the lake tomorrow because I haven't done that in a long time. And so hopefully I'm crossing all my fingers and toes that I could find some new favorites in these last 2 days of Summerween. But thank you so much for watching. You'll have to let me know if you're participating in Summerween. How is it going for you so far? Tell me how many books that you've read, if you found any new favorites. I would love to know everything. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon with my final Summerween vlog. Bye!